Focus channel, and my name is Paul. Today's topic is Moroccan Darija, Morocco's Arabic dialect. Or is it? Moroccan Darija is normally considered to belong to the Maghrebi Arabic dialect group, which includes not only Moroccan Arabic but also Algerian, Tunisian, and Hassaniya Arabic. Moroccan Darija is also known as the Arabic dialect, which is the most difficult for speakers of other dialects to understand, and the further you travel east away from Morocco, the more difficult it becomes. Some Arabic speakers say that hearing Moroccan Darija is like hearing a different language, and some Moroccans insist that Darija is actually a different language because it's influenced by the Amazigh language. Still, other Moroccans insist that Darija is indeed Arabic and is closely connected with Classical Arabic. In the 7th century CE, the Islamic conquest of the Maghreb region brought both Islam and the Arabic language to Morocco. But before that, Morocco's population consisted mostly of Berber people. The term Berber actually refers to Amazigh people, a North African ethnic group that speaks Amazigh languages. When these Amazigh speakers learned Arabic, the language of the new rulers, their native Amazigh languages naturally influenced the way they spoke Arabic. And this is the source of some of Darija's unique features. The Iberian Peninsula also came under Muslim control. This resulted in significant interaction between Morocco and Spanish and Portuguese speakers from the nearby peninsula. In the 19th century, French economic interest in Morocco brought French influence to the country. And in 1912, Morocco was divided into French and Spanish protectorates. The Spanish protectorate occupied a strip of the northern coast, as well as a strip of land called Cape Juby next to the Spanish Sahara. The French protectorate occupied all the land in between. This colonial presence had an influence on Moroccan Darija, in particular in the form of French and Spanish loanwords. These protectorates came to an end in 1956 when Morocco gained independence. Western Sahara remained a Spanish protectorate until 1975, when it was annexed by Morocco. Upon independence, Morocco's official language became Arabic, and in 2011, Amazigh was also made an official language. But French continues to be a prestige language alongside Modern Standard Arabic until this day. Many Moroccans are fluent in French, especially in the major cities, and it's commonly used in business and in government, and it's the main language of university instruction. This has resulted in the continuous influence of French on Moroccan Darija, in particular academic vocabulary and words related to modern innovations. And there's also an element of code switching, of impulsively including French words and expressions into Darija off the cuff. Currently in Morocco, about 65% of the population speaks Darija as a first language. Around 30% speaks an Amazigh dialect as a first language, but the vast majority of them speak Darija as a second language as well. Modern Standard Arabic and French are learned at school. Modern Standard Arabic is limited to certain formal situations, media, and writing, whereas Darija is used for daily communication, rather than Modern Standard Arabic. Now let's take a look at Moroccan Darija. Moroccan Darija differs from Modern Standard Arabic and from other Arabic dialects in a number of ways. Vocabulary. As I mentioned before, there are many French loanwords in Moroccan Darija. For example, the word for table, طبلة, which comes from French table, whereas in Standard Arabic it's
طاولة.
Hospital,
سبيطار.
from French hôpital, though I suspect it shares a double etymology with Spanish because of the S in the word. In Spanish it's hospital. In Standard Arabic it's
مستشفى.
apartment,
برطمة.
from French appartement. In Standard Arabic it's
شقة.
To a lesser extent, there is also Spanish vocabulary, the word for kitchen,
كوزينة.
from Spanish cocina. In Standard Arabic it's
مطبخ.
week,
سيمانة.
from Spanish semana. In Standard Arabic it's
أسبوع.
Some words come from Amazigh, the word meaning how much.
شحال. شحال في عمرك.
This means how old are you? In Standard Arabic it's kam, the word for tea.
أتاي.
The Arabic word is,
شاي.
and some words are of Arabic origin but have changed or are used differently. The Moroccan word for a lot is
بزاف.
This is the equivalent of
كثير.
in Standard Arabic. It comes from Classical Arabic bijuzef, which means a lot or without measure. The Darija word for who is
شكون.
This probably comes from the Classical Arabic ayashayikun, which means anything is or whichever is, but its meaning has evolved to mean who. The Darija word for the number 2 is
جوج.
whereas in Standard Arabic it's
اثنان.
Juge comes from the Arabic word zawj, meaning pair or couple. Pronunciation. One of the most important features of Moroccan Darija, and the one that makes it the most difficult for speakers of other dialects to understand, is vowel reduction. Short vowels are often reduced to a schwa sound or dropped entirely, resulting in new consonant clusters and sometimes in syllables that consist of only consonants. This is because of the influence of Amazigh phonology on Darija. For example,
بلد
meaning country or city. In Moroccan Darija, it's pronounced.
بلاد.
Another example.
كتب
This is the past tense verb stem of the verb meaning to write. But in Moroccan pronunciation, it's like this.
كتب. هنا
Means here. But in Morocco, it's.
هنا.
In all of these examples, the Arabic word has stress on the first syllable, but in the Darija word, the stress moves to the final vowel, and the earlier vowel is reduced or dropped. This tendency becomes a bit more important with multiple words.
أنت تكتب.
This means you write, but in Morocco, it's pronounced.
أنت كتكتب. أنت تكتب. أنت كتكتب.
Grammar. I would say that Moroccan Darija's grammar is not radically different from other Arabic dialects, which share a lot in common with each other and which differ from modern Standard Arabic in similar ways. But the influence of Amazigh grammar is indeed obvious in a number of different structures. One example is the lack of a dual form in Darija. In Standard Arabic, there are singular, plural, and dual forms, dual being used when there are two of something. In Standard Arabic, we have,
كتابان.
but in Darija, it's.
جوج كتوبة.
Another example is the passive form in Moroccan Darija. In Standard Arabic, the passive is formed by changing the vowels of the verb.
كتب الكتابة.
Means he wrote the book.
كتب الكتاب.
In Moroccan Darija, you form the passive by simply inserting t before an active verb.
كتب الكتاب.
Means he wrote the book. And
الكتاب تكتب.
means the book was written. Another example is a pattern of forming abstract nouns from other nouns by prefixing ta and adding t as a suffix.
كذاب.
Means liar. And
أنت كذبت.
means habitual lying. This same pattern is found in Amazigh. This particular word is not used in all local dialects, but there are lots of other similarly formed words, often related to occupations. Also, the reflexive in Darija directly mirrors the Amazigh reflexive.
أيوب شاف راسه في المراية.
This means Ayub saw himself in the mirror. The way himself is expressed literally means his head. In Standard Arabic, this sentence would be.
رأى أيوب نفسه في المرآة.
In Standard Arabic, a different word, nafs, is used instead of ras. One extra thing to notice here is that the Standard Arabic sentence is VSO, the verb comes at the beginning, but the Darija sentence is SVO, with the subject before the verb. Now let's look at a few Moroccan Darija sentences and break them down. This sentence means I ride the bus to school every day.
كنركب الطوبيس للمدرسة كل نهار.
Word for word it's I ride the bus, the school every day. In Standard Arabic it would be
أنا أركب الحافلة إلى المدرسة كل يوم.
First, notice that the Standard Arabic sentence has a subject pronoun, while the Darija sentence doesn't. Actually, it's optional in Standard Arabic as well. So with that optional pronoun aside, notice that the first word of the sentence is different. The Moroccan word has a prefix ke to indicate present tense, while the Standard Arabic sentence does not. Also, the Standard Arabic word has the first person singular prefix a, while the Moroccan word has n. In Standard Arabic, the prefix n would indicate first person plural. You may have also noticed that the vowel patterns of these two words are different. Next, notice this word, tobis, which comes from the French word autobus. The Standard Arabic word is hafila. Both before tobis and before the next word, madrasa, we see the definite article. In Standard Arabic, it's al, but in Darija, it's reduced to ul. In madrasa, notice that the vowel pattern and stress are different, with the Darija word losing its first vowel, or it becomes a very short schwa sound. Next, we see kul nahar, and in Standard Arabic, we see kulu yaum. Nahar and yaum are both Standard Arabic words, and both exist in Darija, with slightly different pronunciation. This is simply a matter of dialectal word choice. You could also say kul yum in Moroccan Darija. Another sentence. This means I don't have any cats, but I have 9 fish.
ما عنديش شمش ولكن عندي 9 الحوتات.
Word for word it's not I have, negative, any, cat, but I have 9 of fish. In Standard Arabic, it would be
ليس لدي أي قطط لكن لدي 9 أسماك.
Your first impression might be that these two sentences are quite different. First, the way of expressing the negative is different. عندي is actually not a verb but a preposition meaning with, plus the pronominal suffix I meaning me. In Standard Arabic, you make this sentence negative using ليس, while in Moroccan Derija, you make it negative by prefixing ma and suffixing sh. This is a double negative, like in French, ne plus pas. This is not exclusively Moroccan, and a similar form is used generally in North African dialects and sometimes in Palestinian as well. She means thing, but is used with the negative to mean any or anything. The Standard Arabic equivalent is ayya. Next, we see that the word for cat is different. Mush is the Derija word for cat, and was borrowed from Amazigh. The word for 9 is tis'a, which is similar to the Standard Arabic word. There's also another word for 9 which is often used in Morocco, ta'oud. This depends on where you are in Morocco. Next in Derija, we see dial, meaning of. This is not present in Standard Arabic. Then we have the word hutat, which is the Derija word for fish. In Standard Arabic, and in most other dialects, it would be asmak, or something similar. Another sentence.
واش بغيتي كاس د الماء؟
This means, do you want a glass of water? Word for word it's question marker, you want, glass of the water. In Standard Arabic, it would be
هل تريد كأسا من الماء؟
The first word here, wesh, is used as a marker for yes or no questions. In Standard Arabic, hal or are used. The next word, بغيتي, is actually the past tense form of a verb meaning to like, but in the past tense form like this, it's similar to would like. In the present tense, it means like. This form with the suffix t is the second person singular form for both masculine and feminine. In Standard Arabic, there are separate forms for masculine singular and feminine singular, but in Moroccan Derija, there is no difference. In the Standard Arabic sentence, we see a different word, turid, which is in the regular present tense form. This is the second person singular masculine, and there's a different feminine form, turidina or turidin. Next, we see the phrase for glass of water. The main difference here lies in the prepositions. Standard Arabic uses min, which means from, and Derija uses de, which I suspect comes from the French preposition de. And one more sentence. This sentence means, yesterday we ate chicken, but today we'll eat beef.
البارح كلينا الدجاج ولكن اليوم غناكلو البقري.
Word for word it's, yesterday we ate chicken, but today, future marker, we eat beef. And in Standard Arabic,
البارحة أكلنا الدجاج ولكن اليوم سنأكل لحم البقر.
First, we see basically the same words meaning yesterday, but in Derija, the definite article is reduced, and the final vowel is missing. There's another word for yesterday in Standard Arabic, al-ams, which is perhaps more common, but this one, al-baraha, is also Standard Arabic. Next, we see that Standard Arabic and Derija have very different forms of the same verb. Notice that the root letters, k, l, are the same, but the Derija word is missing the first root letter, alif, and the vowel patterns are very different. Yet both of these are the first person plural past tense form of the verb to eat. Here we see walakin is the same, except that the vowels are shortened in Derija. And here we have al-yum, which is al-yawm in Standard Arabic. Remember that in a previous sentence we saw nahad instead of yum. Both are possible, even though nahad tends to be common. Next we see the future tense. In Standard Arabic, the future tense is formed by adding the prefix sa to the present tense form, or alternatively another preverb saufa is used. But in Moroccan Derija, you add the preverb ghadi to the present tense form. Notice again that the present tense form has the prefix ka and naklu. This is equivalent to nakul in Standard Arabic, but in Derija, the u vowel here is shortened, and we add a suffix u to indicate that this is first person plural, not first person singular, since both of them have the prefix n. In Derija, the first person singular resembles the first person plural in Standard Arabic, so this vowel suffix is added to indicate plural. As you can see, Moroccan Derija differs quite a lot from Standard Arabic, but is it different enough to be considered a different language? Well, that's debatable. All Arabic dialects differ from Standard Arabic in ways similar to those seen in this video. The exact words and constructions aren't the same, but the same types of differences are prominent in most dialects. As Arabic expanded into new lands and was adopted by speakers of other languages well over 1200 years ago, new Arabic speakers in each community developed their own variety of Arabic that was influenced by their previous native language. So while Moroccan Arabic shows the influence of Amazigh languages, Egyptian Arabic shows the influence of the Coptic language, and the dialects of the Levant region show the influence of Aramaic, etc. From my point of view, the one thing that makes Moroccan Arabic less intelligible for speakers of other dialects is its phonology, specifically its stress and the reduction of vowels. But it seems to me that this problem can be overcome through exposure and by the Moroccan speaker slowing down a little bit. For an English speaker, maybe it's comparable to, say, rural Scottish English spoken very quickly. On first listen, it may sound to you like a different language, but if they slow down for you, you might be able to understand and make sense of all those different vowel sounds. And assuming both of us have been to school and are literate, we can adjust our speech a little bit to make it more like a book. And speakers of Moroccan Darija can do the same thing by including some elements of Standard Arabic into their speech, or by using some elements of Syrian and Egyptian dialects. And to everyone, thank you for watching and have a nice day.